maybe we can just start by you telling us what you remember of little Rinpoche.
He was always smiling and always happy. He was a happy little person and was very entertaining. He was always, you know, singing and dancing and making jokes, and I thought for sure he would become an entertainer.
You were telling us before that he would put on little shows for you and your mother.
Yes.
Like what kind of shows?
Well, you know, sometimes he'd do impersonations, and then sometimes he would just sing and you know, dance and just do a little, you know, act and just little things like that, or, you know, tell a joke or something, or make funny faces. So
he still does that now.
Yeah. So you never knew what he was going to do. So we just sit there and watch, and it was very entertaining and just make you laugh.
Can you remember when he first came to join your family?
Yes, I can. We went to pick him up. I think it was somewhere April or May, and it must have been May. And we got the call, so we went to drove to Philadelphia to pick him up, and we got him, and he was this little person, and he was really small and, you know, skinny, and but he was a happy person. And then we got him in the car and we rode home with him, and he didn't speak any English, so it was difficult. But we managed, and then Dechen Ming came and stayed with us and was the translator for us, and that helped out a lot.
Do you know how it came about that your parents decided to adopt this little boy?
Basically, it was decided by Dechen Ming. She wanted to bring him over from Taiwan, and they did that, and then she wanted him to go to a family, and we had spent a lot of time with her and her daughter, so she decided that my parents would be good parents for him, and she asked and said, you know, would you, you know, take him, and they said, okay.
Mm-hmm. Do you know why she wanted to bring him over to America?
I think she just wanted to have him just close to her, because, you know, he was the first grandchild. And she wanted him, you know, somewhere in the vicinity, since she had already moved here and was living here, so that's what she wanted to do.
But they never ever openly acknowledged that this was her grandson, right?
No, it was a big secret.
Did the Kamik community know that?
No.
Most of them know? No.
No, just my parents.
Okay, okay. So they just knew that there was this little boy who just turned up.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not unusual, because that happens a lot where they'll adopt people and stuff, so it's not uncommon, so it wasn't anything out of the ordinary.
And you had left home shortly after?
Yeah, in September.
Okay. So what can you remember of the time that you spent with him, or what you would do together with him?
Well, we went shopping. He needed clothes because he didn't come with very much, so we'd go shopping with him. But he loved playing outside in the little baby pool, because it was summertime, and he'd always be playing it. And I know the Chinese word for water, I think, is yong-yong. Yu-yong. Anyway, he used to say that all the time. And be playing in the water, and the little boy from across the street would come over, and they'd just play in the water all the time. They loved it.
And there was this story about how he'd hide under the table?
Oh, yes. When we first got him, and, you know, I thought we had, you know, the family, and you know how large the family is, and we had dinner the first night, and he went under the dining room table to eat. And we thought that was very strange. So then my mother crawled under there to keep him company, because we couldn't understand why he was doing that. And then I crawled under there, so the three of us would sit there. And then finally, eventually, he would come out from under the table, and he would sit at the table to eat with us. But, you know, for a long time, he wouldn't eat with us at the table. He would take his food and go under the table and sit there and eat.
But he wouldn't say why?
Well, we didn't know, because, you know, he didn't speak English yet.
Yeah, up to today, Rinpoche will tell us that he remembers he had this sister who was really beautiful. He remembers your long black hair, and he would remember you coming under the table and trying to get him out of the table, get him out from under the table.
Yeah, it took a while, but he eventually came out, and he sat at the table with everyone. Because Kalmyks like to have everyone sit at the table and eat, and just to have it as a family thing.
And the family was very close.
Yeah, they're all of them. There's zillions of us.
And would you come back often?
Yes,
to
I'd come back at least once a year, especially for the holidays.
So you'd still see him like quite frequently then?
Yes, as he was growing up.
And did you, what would you observe of, you know, how he was growing up and what he was like as a kid?
He was always happy. He was always happy and just like a comedian. He was always doing something.
Did you know that he was going through tough times as well at home?
No, because he really didn't speak to me much about that, and I wasn't there that often.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'd come to visit, it was kind of like, okay, we're going to have some fun now.
So things were always okay when you were back
Yes.
at home? And what would be the kind of things that he would talk to you about?
Just, you know, kid things, stuff about school, and talk about the animals, just whatever happened to be on his mind at the time.
Mm. I understand you grew up in Howell, though.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up with Donna and Boris?
They had a love-hate relationship, and they just, sometimes it was fine, and then sometimes they'd be fighting. And you just never knew what was going to happen.
What were the kind of dynamics between them? What do you mean by love-hate relationship?
Well, they loved each other, but they also didn't like each other because they would fight. I mean, if you have a relationship, most relationships is based on where you get along with the person, and you don't have to have fights about, you know, the silliest thing. But he would push her buttons and get her upset, and then she would, you know, retaliate. She was a strong woman, and she didn't like being dominated.
And why would he push her buttons, do you know?
Because, you know, it's part of the relationship. He was the male, so, you know, he had to be macho.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, you know, most Kalmyk men are like that. And most Kalmyk women are very submissive and just put up with it.
So how did you observe the way your mother handled everything?
It just went from day to day. Most of the days she would, you know, be quite submissive, and then when it was just too much, or if it was something she was really interested in, then, you know, they'd have a large argument.
And she would somehow end up taking it out on the kids, or I mean...
It would depend. No, when they would fight together, she would never take it out on the kids. It's when he would push her buttons, something about the kids, well, about me, and then she would get upset and then take it out on me.
Why would he bicker about the kids? Like, what would he...
Well, I might have gotten dirty or something, you know, got my dress dirty, or I didn't behave properly in public. So I was always on display. So I had to be perfect, and no one is perfect.
Mm-hmm. So if you did something wrong, that would have made him kind of...
That I would embarrass him,
Mm-hmm.
and he would lose face.
And then he would blame Donna then about that?
Yes.
And do you know, from what you know, it was something like that with Bertha as well?
No, the dynamics there was completely different. It was reversed.
What do you mean by that?
It was different in that Bertha was my stepfather, and Donna was my biological mother. Mm-hmm. And he had always wanted a son, and I was never really good enough because I was female. And, you know, Kalmyk and Mongolians, you know, the son is the most important thing. So he had always wanted a son, and my mother was never able to give him a son, so he was upset about that. And that was something in there, you know, that it was in the back of his mind. And then when they got the chance to actually have a son, he was just overjoyed. And he was basically obsessed with Bertha because he loved him so much, because he was a boy and that he would carry on his family name. So that really was important to him. And I think that was what kind of made the relationship a little worse as time went on, because she was not getting the attention that she needed. and everything was directed toward Burcha and not enough towards her.
So she was acting out of quite a lot of frustration.
Yes.
And this would be taken out on Burcha.
Yes.
How did you know this?
I watched.
Even though things were okay whenever you came home?
Yeah, I would get phone calls and I would hear, you know, she would call and talk to me, he would call and talk to me, and when I'd come home, I'd hear the stories from both of them and what was going on. So by then, you know, I was a lot older, and I became more like the parent and the mediator, and they both talked to me.
And what would they talk about?
He was not happy because she didn't treat him the way he wanted to treat him, and he wasn't doing the things that he wanted him to do because he had to be dressed and proper and the whole bit. And he was always a little squirmy and, you know, always, you know, moving and touching things. And he didn't have the ability to sit still and just look decorative. And that kind of upset him. And then my mother saw all the attention that was lavished on him, that she wasn't getting any attention, and that kind of upset her. And that, you know, the dynamics kind of went down the tubes.
And he would not treat her very well in public as well, is that right?
Sometimes
he would put her down?
Yes, that would happen, and she didn't like that at all. So then we'd go home and they'd have an argument over that.
Did you ever see instances of that where he would do that in public?
Yes.
And he didn't care if there were people around?
No.
What would he say to her?
Well, you know, he was the man. I can't remember offhand. I just remember, you know, the offhand remarks that he would say. But that was just, you know, he was the man of the house, and that's just how things were. And if he didn't like, you know, something, he would just say that.
And is this, do you think, kind of contributed towards her illness?
Yes.
And it sort of, did you see it kind of get worse over the years, or?
Yes, it got worse. If they, you know, back then people didn't talk about mental disease and mental illness, and just was something that, okay, well, you know, this person has a problem, but we're not going to discuss it, we're not going to do anything about it. And if they had gotten her at a younger age and they could have medicated her, and she would have been much better, because she was a lot better toward the end of her life when they had her on the right medications and everything.
But at the time, people must have known what you were going through as well.
No.
People didn't know?
No.
So from what did, I guess people thought you had a great family then?
That's correct. On the outside it looked beautiful.
And people would tell you that?
No, but, you know, they just would see, you know, you're always well-dressed, you look good, you're clean, you're nice, you're polite, you're well-behaved, you know, you're a good child, and they both always looked fabulous. They were always, you know, very, you know, conscious of styles and dressed really well and everything. And we always had a, you know, a new car every 3 years, and everything on the outside was fine.
So you were really kind of all alone as you were growing up?
Well, no, I had my grandparents. They were my anchors, and I spent all my holidays and summer breaks with them. So I spent a lot of time, you know, growing up, and they were like my my parents. And when they passed away, that was very traumatic.
For you, yeah. Then you had to just go live with, stay in Howell and all that time.
Yeah.
Because I guess most of the family would have moved away from Philadelphia by then.
Yes, after my grandfather passed away.
Okay. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how you and Donna came over from Europe?
I was 9 months old when we got here. It was in April of 1952. And we flew over, and we lived with my great-grandmother, and that was my mother's grandmother. And we lived in a displaced persons camp with my biological father. And all the family had left already for America, and she didn't want to go with them. So she stayed behind and lived with my mom and me and my biological father. And she just got so upset. She said that, you know, she was crying all the time and just didn't want to stay there because she missed her daughter. That was the only child she had. and I wanted to go to America to be with him. And finally my mother said, okay, I will take you, because she wouldn't go by herself.
Your mother's grandmother?
Yes.
Okay.
So we just all got visas, and we got on the plane and went to New York.
But your own biological father
He couldn't
go?
No, because he had been arrested for dabbling in the black market, because at the time, you know, that's how you got some of your food and everything, because it was post-war, and the United States wouldn't allow him to come into the country.
Okay. What was his name? Do you remember?
Osteozolorutro.
Oh my goodness, I think you may have to spell that for us.
I'll have to look it up.
Okay. Okay. And then when you came over to America, then you must have been just over 1 year old?
I was 9 months old.
You're 9 months.
And I lived with my grandparents and Meda and Gija in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And my mom.
And your mom at some point moved to Howell?
Well, she was working in Philadelphia, and then she met my father, and she decided she didn't want to live with my grandparents anymore, because she was being, you know, she had to give all her money to them and her paycheck, and she just didn't have the freedom that she wanted, because she was still a young woman.
Mm-hmm.
So she met my father, and she thought it was a good decision to get married, so she ran away and got married.
How old was she when she moved to America?
She must have been about 21.
Oh, she was still
She was very young. Yeah, she was 21, 22.
And she married him soon after coming to America then?
The following year, I think it was 1953, when they got married in December. So it was about at least a year.
Mm-hmm. Can you remember, like, the first time you met Bertha?
No.
No, I guess you must have been really young then.
No, I have other memories of that time, but that's not one of them.
Mm-hmm. But you continued to stay with your grandparents?
Yes.
Until...
I was almost 5.
And then you moved to Howell when you were
Yes.
about 5? Okay, okay.
I had to start school.
Mm-hmm. And I know things are difficult for you, but I think I gather that you were also very close to Donna.
Yes.
As you were growing up.
Yeah, she's still my mom.
Yeah.
You know, she had problems, but you know, when she was good, it was fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to take the good and the bad, and when she'd have her moments, and you know, they weren't a lot. You just never knew on what was going on with the relationship. So most of the time it was pretty quiet.
Okay. So what was it like living in the household? Like, I mean, Rinpoche has shared quite a lot with us as well, and has explained to us that, you know, it was very difficult living there because it was like walking on eggshells. And you
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
You just never knew what was going to happen. But you just have to get to the place where I learned to be a survivor at a young age, and I had the patience to just be able to follow through. So I could, I guess I must have had a lot of good inner strength at that age, that I was able to just sit and do what I needed to do and just survive.
It must have been very fearful, though, living in a household where you never know.
I don't think I was ever afraid.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
There was really nothing to fear because I didn't think they were going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, you know, if it's physical, it's physical, and that's something that goes away. And it's emotional, and you just can't listen to it. And you can't believe what you hear because that's getting to you. You lose your self-esteem that way. You just have to be real strong. And I had that backbone that I got from my grandparents, and with all that love and nurturing from them, I had a pretty good start. So I was able to take things and say, okay, well, it's just, you know, that's just how she is, and that's just what's happening, and it'll be over.
What was your relationship like with Bertha?
We didn't really have much of a relationship. I still don't know to this day on whether he loved me or not. I should have asked him before he passed. I think toward the end, I know he appreciated me coming and helping take care of him before he passed. And I always went back, and they were my parents, and I just always went back, and I just never said, okay, well, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Just something that, you know, that was my duty. That was what I had to do. That was my road that I had to take. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. And most of the time when you're abused, you leave, you're not there. So you're not there experiencing it. You're somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of people talk about actually how kind and generous Dana was.
They were both generous. They were both very generous. And my mom would give you the shirt off her back. She had a heart of gold. Mm-hmm. And she just would give you anything. I mean, do anything for you. You could call her in the middle of the night and she would come.
Oh. She would help total strangers as well, I heard.
Yes.
Can you remember instances of those?
We were in Philadelphia, and we're going on a tour, you know, just walking around downtown Philadelphia, and we're right at Benjamin Franklin's grave, his cemetery, mm-hmm. and there was a panhandler there. So she went over there and gave him some money, and I said, Mom, you're giving him money, he's only going to go there and buy more booze. And she said, well, you never know, maybe he needs to go get something to eat. But, you know, she had to give him money because he needed it. She had it. Mm-hmm. And what he did with it was his business. So if he, you know, spent it on something he wasn't supposed to, that was his problem.
Okay. And she would do that quite frequently, right?
Oh, yeah. We never passed...
Yeah.
We never passed up a homeless or a panhandler.
Yeah, I remember she would tell us that she would go dig people out of the snow in winter. She'd go there with her chains and pull people out of the snow.
Oh, she was physically very strong, and yeah, she could lift 100 pounds easy.
Oh,
because I have the same ability where we go to the farmer's market and it's like, okay, well, take this 100-pound bag of potatoes back to the car. It's like, okay, so you just take it, throw it over your shoulder, and you go. So she was very, very, very strong. She had a lot of upper body strength.
I remember she would tell us that she was the one who would pretty much put the house together.
Yeah, they fought a lot about that too. But I remember, going in there and working. I had laid part of the floor in my bedroom, the wood floor with the little machine. So we were always doing something in there. And she knew exactly how she wanted it, and she got it the way she wanted it. And my father's like, everyone says you're building a hotel and all this other stuff. And she says, no, this is how we're going to do it. And this is what we need. And she was right on that respect. He loved that house.
And it was really her who built it, was it?
Well, they did it together. He worked on, getting the financing and everything for it. But she basically oversaw everybody of what they were doing because she knew exactly what she wanted.
Mm-hmm. I heard that she would redo the wallpaper all by herself.
Yes.
Reupholster sofas.
Yes, and paint.
God.
Yeah, she was very handy. She used to trim the tree. Well, before the house was there was a smaller house and there was lots of trees. She would go out there, trim the tree, paint the outside of the house on the ladder, and just she was just very good that way.
Gosh, she's a tough lady. Yeah.
Yes.
Did it make you mad to see the way Bircher would treat her?
No.
Did you just kind of think it was normal? Or?
No, you just accepting. I've always been a very accepting, and this is how it is, and unless you have the power to change it, and I had no power. Mm-hmm. So you just had to, being abused is, people handle it differently, and it's like, well, why didn't you fight back, and why didn't you do this and that? You can't, because you don't have the power. Mm-hmm. And you just have to sit and observe. I was just happy that they weren't yelling at me.
And how did you have an idea that this was happening to Bircher too then? Because you never saw it for yourself, right?
No, but there's inklings. You have an inkling. I remember when they were visiting us in Colorado, and it was just Bircher and my mom, and he was being, his little teenage self, and, he had a very big mouth. He just talked constantly. And he just was, going off and doing his little teenage thing, and we're kind of like, well, you're being that was kind of rude. And, you know, I basically, you know, I told him that, and Mark told him that, and it's like, you know, that's the end of it, and don't think anything about it. Well, yeah, I guess my mother must have heard, because Mark and I then went shopping. And then when we came back, he was up in his room. He was in a bedroom upstairs. My mother was in a bedroom downstairs. And I said, well, where's Bircha? She said, oh, he's up in his room. I said, what's he doing up there? He was up there crying. And she said, I didn't like what he had said to you, so, you know, she spanked him. Yeah. Which, you know, she didn't just spank him, she beat him.
How old was he then? Approximately.
He was a pre-adolescent, so he must have been about 10, 11, 12. Oh. So, yeah, he was still young, and then, you know, he was up there crying, and I tried talking to him, and he didn't want to talk about it. And then I knew that it was the same scenario that I had gone through, except different circumstances.
So you had received physical abuse as well?
Yes.
And there was no one you could talk to about it either?
No, you just didn't talk about it.
I guess in those times as well, schools were not like trained to look out for things like that.
No, they weren't.
Did your grandparents know about what was going on?
Yes.
And they couldn't do anything either?
While they were alive, things were very good for me, and that didn't happen while they were alive, because my father was afraid of my grandfather.
Oh, okay.
So that was my protection until he died. So the worst of it happened after my grandfather died, and I was 12.
Okay.
Because they were all afraid of him. He was the head of the family, and that was my protection.
So even when you were 12, which is quite old, you were still kind of subject to being. You said before that they had wanted you to be very doll-like.
Yes.
Even when you were at an older age?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Is that why you always had very nice dresses?
Yes.
And it was similar for little Bircha as well.
Yes. You always had to be dressed up and look good. Even if you didn't like what you were wearing.
And why was it so important for them, or for Big Bircha then?
You know, just the way you always had to look good. You know, they both grew up with the war and not having very much, and then you just had to have good, you know, appearances. The Kalmyks were really good about that in the old days. I mean, it was after the war, and here they've got some money, and they can get dressed up, and they can look good after all those years of, you know, wearing rags and not having enough time to do, you know, fun things and not having food to eat. That it gave them a chance where they would all party and get dressed up and do something almost every weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I was young.
Yeah.
They were always going out.
Were they quite traditional as well, though?
Yes.
So there was this kind of conflict then, that they're in the new world, but they're still also very traditional. But
you might be in the new world, but the rules haven't changed. It's still the old Kalmyk ways at home. We spoke Kalmyk, no English. Kalmyk was my first language. I didn't speak any English till I started school, so it was just, you know, business as usual. This is, you know, everyone spoke Kalmyk, they had all the traditions, you followed all the traditions, and some of the traditions had to start dying off, and that was kind of difficult. But that was that generation that I was in, where they used to have arranged marriages, and, you know, they try to still do that. And there are still some girls that are even younger than I am that were forced to marry Kalmyk boys.
So it wasn't specific to your family? It was quite normal?
Yes.
That a lot of families would have specific expectations of their children?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say it was to any degree lesser or worse in the Bugayev household? Because it seemed that Bircha had very set ideas on what roles people should have. Right?
It depended on the family. It was probably more set in his family because of, you know, he grew up in Russia, and that kind of you know, set, you know, everything is strong-armed. So they always used to fight about, she always used to yell at him about him being a Stalinist, and you know, the old Russian ways don't work here anymore. So it was probably a little bit more so.
Okay. And something Rinpoche told us was that Butcher wouldn't have any of the Americanisms. So for a long time, Rinpoche was not allowed to wear jeans. He wanted to have an American name because kids were teasing him at school, and his Butcher had said no. Did you experience that as well? That
No, I didn't. But, you know, he was a boy and I was a girl, so I didn't really matter.
Oh, okay.
You know, females just didn't. I wore jeans constantly.
Oh, all right.
I was one of the first bra burners. I didn't wear a bra. It's kind of like one of the first feminists, and he couldn't control that because I'd gotten to the point, you know, I was over 18 and off at college and discovering the world, and I started getting a backbone.
They must have been quite sad when you left home.
My mother was devastated. She was devastated. But it's something that I had to do in order to save myself. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did.
But you stayed very close to her even after you left, right? You
Yes.
came back quite often.
Yes.
What about when little Butcher had left home? I mean, you must have been the one that Donna spoke to quite a lot when he left.
She did, and she was upset. And she was upset with my father, because that time he ran away and they found him in Ohio. She said he should have gone to go get him instead of sending Jija. And I think that was a big turning point right there, and that she was upset with that.
Do you know why he didn't go?
I don't know. He never spoke of that. He just couldn't do it. And it's the same thing with going through with the adoption. He just couldn't do it.
What do you mean he couldn't do? He couldn't do it with the adoption.
My Butcher was being adopted by my parents. They had done all the paperwork. They've gone through all the background checks, and they had the social worker come out and did all of that thing. And all they had left to do was to go and sign the papers at the courthouse. And my father couldn't do it.
Oh, so he was never officially adopted?
No, he wasn't. Got very close.
Okay, so what was his status in America then? Like he didn't have a... I mean, he wasn't...
He had a green card.
Okay. But, I mean, little Butcher. So he never officially had a family then?
Well, he had my parents.
But
it wasn't an official adoption, no, that never went through.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know if he knew that. And
it got very close, and the reason that he didn't want to do it was because he was afraid, he didn't want little Butcher to find out that, you know, he was adopted, because he wanted him to believe that he was his own biological son, and he didn't want to see it on paper.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
And that's why he couldn't sign it. And my mother said, "No, you got to do it," and he just refused.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. And he never said why he didn't go to Indianapolis.
No.
To pick him up.
No.
But that was the second attempt to run away. What about when he really finally ran away? We heard that Donna was actually away from Howell when Butcher had run away. Do you know how she found out and what her reaction was like?
Oh, she got a phone call. She was with me.
Oh, she was staying with you in Denver?
Yeah, and she was really upset. And that's when, you know, she told me about when he did go to pick him up the first time. When he was run away and sent Jija when he was in Ohio or Indiana or wherever it was. So, you know, she was real upset.
Was she, like, angry at him? Or just sad, or...?
Both.
Can you remember what she said about him? Or?
No, it's so long ago.
And did they try and find him? Did they try and go track him down?
I think they eventually did. They did find him in L.A., and, you know, they were in touch with Bobby. It's my cousin Bobby, so they kind of knew, but I'm sure it really devastated my father, and my mother was very upset.
Yeah, how was your father's reaction, Butcher's reaction?
He was upset. It was like stabbing him in the heart.
Because he loved Rinpoche so much?
Yes.
Okay. What did he talk about it to you ever?
No, only every once in a while he would say something that, oh, we heard from him, he's in India, and that every once in a while he would send him money and things like that. So, but no, he kept it pretty close to his heart. I guess it was a very painful subject for him.
He did send money to India to support Rinpoche? Oh,
that's what he told me.
Okay.
Without my mother knowing.
Without your mother knowing?
Yeah.
Okay. Did she talk about it much later? I mean, when things had kind of settled down a little bit?
No,
more?
just every once in a while. Not very often.
Were you around when she found out that he had become a monk?
No, I wasn't with her at the time, but she already knew that that's what was going to happen, and that was she was hoping that he would get married and have a family. They were both hoping for that. So that was another blow to my father.
Mm-hmm. And was that one of the reasons why they were so opposed to his interest in Dharma and his passion for it? Yes,
because they thought he would carry on the family name.
And that was quite a big disappointment, I guess, for Bircha.
It was devastating.
And were you around that last trip that he came back to Los Angeles, to Howell before he left for India?
No, I wasn't.
No. Okay. Did your parents ever say anything to you about that?
No, just that he was leaving, and I saw him that one trip coming through LA. We had met before. I had layover,
mm-hmm.
And I saw him then. But no, they never really said anything.
How was he when you saw him in LA?
He was happy. He was fine. He was, skinny and had crazy hair, and he was doing well.
Did you actually stay with him?
No, it was just a layover, so we only spent a couple of hours together.
Oh, okay. Did he talk much to you about what he was doing and what he was up to then?
Don't remember. It was so long ago. Probably just chit-chatting.
Mm-hmm. Just about what he was up to, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
New news.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had heard that from Rinpoche. He told us that when he told his mother that he was going to be a monk, she told him that once the robes touch his skin, he is no longer her son. Do you know if she kind of kept that for the rest of her life?
No, that changed.
It did? How?
It's mother speaking, that changes all the time. You have a disappointment, and I was disinherited too. I was, thrown out, but I came back, and things change. Finally they see that you have to go on the road that you have to go on, and things like that change. So that changed for her. She told, she talked to me about that.
How much longer after he became a monk did he talk to you?
We didn't talk about this till after my father died.
Oh.
So it was a long time.
And what did she say? Can you share?
That he was a monk, and that she was happy that he was doing what he wanted to do, and that she was still disappointed, but she learned to accept it.
But she must have been quite proud that he was recognized as a highly incarnate Lama. Was she proud of that?
I don't know, because she never really talked about that.
Did she ever share any regret that she might have had for the way things had turned out, or?
No, she never said she was sorry, and never showed. No, that was just not part. That was something she would deal with inside her.
I guess that's not really her.
Yeah, I know the only one regret that I know she would say, that she thought that she wasn't being a good mother, because why would I run away at the age of 22 and then he run away? So she thought maybe there was something wasn't being done right. She had no clue. So she had some thoughts about it, but really wasn't too sure what to make of it. Couldn't understand it.
I guess because with her illness, whenever she did have an outburst, it wasn't really her.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was like day and night.
We had heard, maybe you can confirm this for us, that when after she passed away, they found someone found a picture of Rinpoche as a monk in her purse. Did you know about this? In her wallet?
Well, she always had a picture of him, and the picture I gave to you earlier. So she had all those pictures that I gave you were all the pictures she had.
And she kept them all.
Yes.
All those years.
Mm-hmm.
Did she ever?
And the letters too.
Oh, okay. Do you know if she ever tried to establish contact with him again?
She would. No, that was not her style. She wouldn't do that.
Okay. And did Bircher ever talk to you about him much later? Did he ever, you know, express any regret or wish that he could see him again?
No, because he just, that was a close subject to him. He didn't discuss that with me. Just that every once in a while he would tell me a little story, you know, that they'd gotten a letter or something and let me read the letter, and that was about it. And he was really unhappy and really missed him.
Oh. I guess you had made a comment before that they wanted to be good parents, but they didn't know how. Something
yes.
like that. But, I mean, you must have seen examples also of how much they loved you and little
yes.
Bircher. And, I mean, in their own way, how did they express their love for their children, do you think? For yourself personally, and then for Bircher?
My mom loved making your favorite foods. One of my favorite desserts used to be strawberry shortcake. And every time I'd come home to visit, there'd be a strawberry shortcake didn't matter if it was the middle of winter and strawberries were hard to find, there'd be a little carton of strawberries there because I love strawberries. And my father always would, you know, give you presents, especially, you know, if something bad happened or, you know, he did something that you didn't think was, you know, nice or whatever, you always got some kind of little gift. So he was always giving gifts.
Mm-hmm. How did you observe or see the way that they loved little Bircher?
They both loved him a tremendous amount.
How did you know that?
You could see it by looking in their face. It's just facial and body expression, and there's when you look at someone with love, you can see it, and it was definitely there.
And they would have done anything for him, I guess.
Yes, my father would have laid out his life for him. Did
they ever talk to you about their frustration with him, with his pursuance of Dharma?
My father didn't. My mother did. She couldn't understand why he kept running to the church all the time. That didn't make any sense to her.
And she would get quite mad about that as well, right?
Yes.
Did you know about any conflict or disagreements with the temple?
She was upset with the temple, and that, you know, she thought that they should come talk to the parents, because that's what you do with a Mongolian family is, you know, you have to have the family want to give their son, especially when it's an only son, over to the church. So she didn't think that they followed the guidelines on that really well, and that kind of upset her.
Okay. Rinpoche had actually explained to us a few times that when his teacher had found out that things were difficult, his teacher had actually advised him not to go to the temple so much because it was upsetting Dana. So it was not so much that the teachers were trying to pull him away from the family or anything.
Well, that's her perception. Yes,
I understand. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of explanation from the other side. But I guess his passion was so strong for Buddhism that he just naturally always wanted to go back. Did he ever share his passion for Dharma with you?
No.
Or did you observe it in him in any way?
Well, just looking at a happy little person, you know, taking care of animals, loving animals, not killing anything. That's it right there. Always trying to be kind.
Did you see that in him even as a little boy?
Yes. Yeah.
What kind of examples do you have of his showing kindness, even as a little kid?
Oh, well, with the little, they would find a squirrel that was, they named, I think, Moosey, and it was, mother had left it, and it was out there, this little squirrel all by itself, and they took it in, and they got a little doll bottle and would feed it, and nurtured it until it, you know, became an adult squirrel and then let it go. So I mean, we always had animals like that, you know, taking care of everything. And always, him and my mother would always go out and feed the birds every day.
Oh.
So it was, you know, they fed the birds. And they loved animals. They both loved animals.
And did you see, you know, he did love his mother very much, and I guess in a way, Bircher as well. Did you ever see, you know, or observe how he respected them or loved them or served them as a little kid?
Well, he would listen and do what they told him to do, just like I did. So that was the sign of respect.
Mm-hmm. He never fought back or anything?
I don't think that happened till he was older.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you have to do as you get older, because I fought back too.
Do you know any instances of when he did fight back, or?
Nothing specific that he would have told me.
Okay. Well, even as a kid, did he ever do anything special for you?
Oh, just entertaining me. That was always a treat, because you never knew what kind of show he would put on, and that was just
Donna Summers.
Yeah. Well, this was before Donna Summers.
Oh, okay.
So he was always doing, you know, something, and just putting on little acts and little shows and stuff, and singing and dancing, and that was I really enjoyed that.
Do you have any kind of special memories of spending time with him? What you would do together, and when you came back?
We used to go shopping. He loved to, you know, that way he got to pick out what he wanted to wear, because I would buy it. And then if my father had an objection to it, I would just say, well, that's the style and that's what they're wearing now. And then it's like, okay. He didn't like it, but you know, that would happen. So whenever I bought him anything, it was okay. And also at night when he'd go to sleep, I go sit up there and we, you know, just talk about, you know, what happened that day and what was going on. And I think he really looked forward to having our little talks. I thought those were very nice.
Did you stay in touch with him when he went off to India?
No, I didn't.
So you fell out of touch for quite a long time?
Yes.
Did he know about what you went through?
I don't think so.
Not until much later?
Yes.
I guess. So this was something I guess you never spoke to?
No.
To him about?
No. Just in therapy.
Did you know about the huge number of chores that little Bircher had to do in the house?
Yes, I had to do the same ones.
Okay. There was once we were sitting with Rinpoche, and he listed out all that he had to do, and it was like 1 hour that he spent telling us, because there was so much. It was so extensive. I mean, did Donna not know this was kind of not normal, that a little kid had to do so much? I mean, it was the gardening and everything as well, right?
No, I guess not, because she had to do all of that when she was younger. So that was a part of her life. And she had to take care of her younger brother and sister from an early age, so it's just something that she always did. And
so she seemed to have extremely high standards of how things should be, and she would kind of fly off the handle as well if things were not at that standard.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that was for you?
Yeah, and if you didn't do it correctly, you got yelled at, and then you had to redo it again. So you wanted to make sure you did it right the first time, so that way it'd be done and over with. And Rinpoche would also tell us that there would be huge dinner parties, and he would kind of dread them, because that would mean lots of dishes. Yeah, and polishing the silverware and all that. Been there, done that. But I never dreaded it. It was just a chore. Well, it must have taken away a lot from your childhood and being able to grow up and do the things that kids do. I didn't have that, so I didn't know any different. When you saw your cousins, you must have thought,
Hang on, they don't have to do so many chores?
Well, some of them did.
Oh, okay. Like the older ones?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you maybe tell us a little bit, you know, I was just talking to Rinpoche the other night and he was saying, he said, you know, Paris, you will never understand what it was like to live in that house. He said, I can explain it to you, but you will never be able to understand the extent of what it was like to be there. And I was hoping maybe you could share a little bit, you know, about what your experience was to grow up in that house, what it was like. Was it, you know, was it fearful? Was it stressed?
It was always stress. I think I was the only, I had an ulcer by the time I was 17. It was very stressful. You just never knew, but you just took it one day at a time. And I think he took it a lot more personal than I did. I didn't take it as personal as he did. I just kind of sat back and disappeared.
But there was no kind of refuge or anything that you could turn to at the time, right?
Well, you go into yourself. That's your refuge you take. A lot of abused children will tell you that they leave their body and they're not there when it's happening. So you don't know. You don't feel it. It's not there. And that, you know, I used to do that a lot.
And how did it kind of affect, you know, the rest of life outside the house, like school and social
I really
life?
didn't have a social life. I didn't have a life. You know, I'd go to school and do schoolwork and then come home. But, you know, they really didn't have a social life. Everything revolved around the house, around the home.
That must have been quite difficult, no, as a young person?
You don't know any better. You just, I've always been an accepting person, and you just accept what you've got, and you just deal with it. And the only friends that I really had were, you know, my cousins. And then I know I had one American friend, and I know she got to stay over one night after I've known her for quite a long time, that she got to sleep over. But no, I didn't have any American friends come over or anything like that. That wasn't allowed.
Was it difficult? You know, you'd go to school and things would be okay. Was it ever difficult going back home and knowing things were quite vastly different, I guess, at home?
When I was going to college and coming back, things were pretty calmed down because they were not used to having me around. So with me coming around again, it was kind of nice. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty quiet by then. The teenage years in high school and everything was quite traumatic and tumultuous. I mean, you just never knew.
In what way?
Well, you just never know. It was like walking on eggshells. You didn't know when, you know, an outburst would happen or something, and it just, you know, if you go a whole day without an outburst, you know, and then it's another day, and it's like it was a good week. So you just never knew.
And you couldn't. I mean, what would it have been like, just not knowing that you had kind of no control over what may happen?
But you're a child. You don't have control. You never have control.
And it was. I mean, what would have happened if you did speak back or fight back?
You got a beating.
Okay.
So I became very good at surviving and self-preservation, and I towed the line. I did exactly what was expected of me, and that's exactly what I did to stay alive.
What were the expectations for you as a girl?
Well, you know, you had to clean everything. You had to take care of the home. You always had to take care of the parents. So, you know, I was always like the servant, taking care of both their needs. As I got older, I became the caretaker of, you know, I would pay I'd get the checkbook, and he'd say, okay, here, you need to pay this, and I'd have to pay all the bills and do all the, you know, managing of that, and then just and go food shopping with my mother every week, you know, get the groceries, you know, bring the groceries in and cook the food, and just that just was part of your life that you just did. And as I got older, I started taking on more duties.
Physical duties?
Yeah.
I guess.
I'd be out there helping my mother. You know, we were always painting or doing something, gardening. And
were there expectations for you to kind of like, okay, you'd have to marry a good into a good family.
Oh yes, yeah. I was. That was one of the reasons that I left home, because I didn't agree with the decision that was made, and I had a choice of marrying 3 Kalmuk boys, and I could pick any one that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not happy with any of them, because I had already met my husband Mark, and I knew that he was going to be part of my life, and I refused to get married to someone I didn't love.
Were they quite angry about that, or upset?
Yes, very upset, very mad.
And
I was expected to marry a Kalmuk boy, and then eventually come back and live in the home, and then take care of them when they got older.
So they did not like Mark for a while as well?
They hated Mark.
Just for a while, or?
Well, it took us, we had to live together for 8 years before everybody finally changed their mind and we got married.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they hated him.
Oh dear. This kind of tension that you lived in, it wasn't just about physical abuse, right? It was also, I mean, we heard that with Rinpoche, it was also an emotional, a mental, like a psychological effect that he was suffering as well. And I'm just wondering if did you have to go through that as well?
Well, that's why I went through therapy for 2 years, yes, to resolve it all.
And how were you dealing with it as a kid? I mean, what kind of emotional abuse would you be receiving from Donna as you were growing up?
It wasn't really too bad. It's like if you didn't do something correctly, or you didn't behave properly, you just had to. But once you learned the rules and you played by the rules, you'd be fine. So I don't think I had as much. I was better coping with it than he was.
Okay, okay.
So I coped with it a lot better.
Did she ever make threats towards you, or?
Oh yeah.
What would she do or say?
Later on in life, most of that was from the paranoid schizophrenia she was suffering. So I really can't include that, because that that changed. But yeah, I was always going to be thrown out of the house and disinherited, and I'd be out there all by myself, and nobody'd be taking care of me. And let me think. Gosh, it's been so long ago. I put most of it to rest. Can't remember anything offhand. But I know there were a lot of threats that she would do against my father.
Oh, like what?
Oh, I remember I was sitting in the kitchen one time, and something was going on between the two of them, and she had this big knife in her hand, and she said, I could just go over there and just stab him.
Did she say it jokingly, or?
Well, no, she was serious when she said it, but
okay.
she would never do it.
Yeah.
Because I knew she wouldn't do it, so I just would look at her and say, oh, okay, and wait for her to put the knife down, and then she'd put the knife down, and then it was over with. And for her, it was fast and quick, and the emotions, like, she'd be mad, over with, move on. Mm-hmm. And, don't think about it anymore, it's done with. So when she puts it down, then it's over with, and she's had her say, and she said her piece, and then she feels better.
So a lot of it is just letting her get it out of her system, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, so she must have felt quite a lot of frustration with Bircha.
Yes.
And it kind of got worse.
Yes.
And how did she express it? I mean, as you saw when you were growing up, this frustration, did she ever vent it out with you? Like talk about him to you?
No, not when I was younger. This didn't happen till I was much, much older, and I was out of the house.
Okay.
And then she would discuss it with me.
Because Rinpoche would tell us that she would say a lot. It wasn't just physical. Mm-hmm. She would say a lot of things to him that had an effect on him for quite a number of years after. I mean, when he was in LA, for example. And she would say things like, you're just like your father. You're going to grow up and be useless. You're going to grow up and have no friends. People won't like you. you're useless.
I didn't have that because I was just like my mother. I worked hard and I towed the line and I did everything that was expected of me. So she didn't do that. And then I think the reason she did some of that with him was because of the relationship, that his love for Bircha was just, so overpowering that there wasn't room for anything else.
Big Bircha's love for little Bircha?
Yes.
Okay. And she felt frustrated because of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she had expressed that later on in life. She was upset with their relationship, and that she wanted a regular relationship with someone, and she wasn't getting it from him.
But they were very much in love with each other before. I mean, when they first got married, and you saw that in them as you were growing up. Like how close were they actually?
Every birthday, and every Mother's Day, and every holiday, Valentine's Day, my mother would get flowers from him. He did this, several times a year. He did it so often that when he passed away, the florist, and my mother did too, when she passed away, the florist came to both their funerals because they remember of the flowers several times a year, of him coming to get the flowers to give her for her birthday, coming to get the flowers for Valentine's Day. And he did that for decades. So he was always giving her flowers, and she loved flowers.
And on a day-to-day basis, did you see them being very affectionate with each other?
Hand patting. They weren't overly affectionate. Every once in a while there'd be a pat on the hand or something, but you did not show emotion, any physical emotion around other people. They might have when they were alone, but I can't attest to anything to do with that.
Would you have said that it was a loving marriage?
Yeah, they loved each other. It's why it was a love-hate thing. I mean, when he died, she was devastated, and he loved her a lot. They loved each other. They just tortured each other.
That's sad that they did that.
Well, there's a reason for everything.
Yeah. It was probably because they loved each other so much that kind of spiraled the other way a little bit, would you say?
I don't know, might be. It's she was a very strong woman, and he just wanted to dominate her, and you couldn't do that. She didn't like that, and that was probably one of their biggest reasons that they had so much discontent.
It's a little bit ironic also that she had actually run away from home because it was a controlling situation at home, right?
Yes.
And she'd gone into another one like that, yeah. One of the interviews that we did, it was actually with Aunt Maida. Her interpretation was that Big Bircha loved Rinpoche so much that he always wanted to look good to little Bircha. So he would manufacture all these situations so that Dana would be the bad guy. So he would look like the good guy. Do you think this is something that could have been
It's possible. He was very good at manipulations.
Oh.
That's a possibility, yes.
And another thing we had also heard was that he had not been faithful to Dana. Did you know about that?
Yes. Which one do you want to know about?
I didn't. I don't know how to answer that. I'm just wondering how much you knew about it, and if Dana knew about it, and how that.
Oh, she knew about it.
She knew about it. That must have been extremely difficult for her too.
Oh, she almost went off the deep end with that one. I still can remember that very well. He had been unfaithful to her for 16 years with the same woman.
Oh.
And she discovered it and was really upset. And she basically embarrassed him in front of the whole community, showed the pictures, and it was not very pleasant for him.
While he was still alive?
Oh, yes. I mean,
oh dear.
It was, he made a big mistake.
Do you know what kind of impact that had on her? Did she talk to you about it?
Yeah, she was really upset because she would say that for a long time, you know, their relationship was like brother and sister, and she wasn't happy with that. She wanted, you know, to have a loving relationship. And here he is running around, you know, all over town with other women and stuff, and that was very just, you know, she hated that. It just made her feel worse.
Do you think that may have been one of the contributing factors to her illness, to the kind of abuse that she turned to, I guess, towards Bircha, little Bircha?
It's hard to say because I'm not sure exactly how much that she knew of how well he was, because he kept the secret very, very well. It's just hard to say. There were lots of rumors and stuff, so it's most of it was very quiet till she found out, and then she basically broadcasted it to the whole community so that everybody knew.